Imagine this. In a quiet Pennsylvania town in the 1950s, doctors stumbled upon a medical miracle that seemed straight out of a fairy tale, where hearts beat strong and lives stretched long without the shadow of disease looming over them. People there lived longer, healthier lives than anywhere else in America. No heart attacks under 55, barely any disease at all, a community thriving in ways that defied medical logic. But it wasn't some magical diet or groundbreaking medicine hidden in their kitchens. It was something far more elusive, something hidden in plain sight, woven into the very fabric of their daily existence. Something that challenges everything we think we know about success and achievement. What if the outliers, the geniuses who reshape industries, the billionaires who amass fortunes beyond imagination, the superstars who captivate the world, aren't just born that way, gifted by some divine lottery? What if their triumphs are woven from invisible threads of opportunity, timing, and culture that most of us never even notice, threads that pull them forward while leaving others behind? Picture Roseto, a sleepy little town nestled in the rolling hills of eastern Pennsylvania, a place where Italian immigrants had transplanted their old-world villages brick by brick, recreating the warmth and closeness of southern Italy amid the American countryside. The streets buzzed with the sounds of neighbors chatting animatedly over white picket fences, children playing tag until dusk, and families gathering for massive Sunday dinners that spilled out onto porches fragrant with garlic and tomato sauce. Laughter echoed late into the night, and elders shared stories under the stars, their voices carrying a sense of unbreakable community. When a team of curious researchers and doctors descended upon this unassuming hamlet in the late 1950s, they were armed with stethoscopes, charts, and hypotheses, expecting to uncover secrets in the locals' diets. Perhaps the abundance of olive oil drizzled over fresh bread, or the hearty glasses of red wine shared at every meal. Maybe it was the genes or some environmental quirk in the water or air. But as they poked and prodded, drawing blood and analyzing habits, they found nothing extraordinary. Diets were laden with fatty meats and cheeses, smoking was as common as morning coffee, and exercise was more of a leisurely stroll than a rigorous routine. Yet, the death rates from heart disease were astonishingly low, plummeting to levels that made nearby towns look like hotbeds of illness. Men over 65 suffered heart attacks at half the national rate, and overall mortality was a fraction of what it should have been. It wasn't the food or the fitness. It was the community itself. The tight-knit bonds forged in shared hardships, the unwavering support that buffered against loneliness and stress, the sense of belonging that acted like an invisible shield against the ailments of modern isolation. This wasn't about individual willpower or personal grit. It was about how the environment, the social web we weave around ourselves, shapes outcomes in profound, often overlooked ways. And just like that, we're pulled into a larger, more intricate tale. Success isn't a solo act performed on an empty stage. It's a story scripted by forces beyond our immediate control, yet ones we can learn to recognize, understand, and perhaps even harness to our advantage. Now, let's transport ourselves across the Atlantic to the early 1960s, to the gritty, neon-lit streets of Hamburg, Germany, where a young band from Liverpool was grinding away in smoky, dimly lit clubs packed with rowdy sailors and night owls. The Beatles, John Lennon with his sharp wit and rhythm guitar, Paul McCartney's melodic bass lines, George Harrison's understated leads, and Ringo Starr's steady drums, weren't the polished icons we remember from Ed Sullivan yet. They were raw, energetic kids playing marathon sets that stretched on for 8 grueling hours a night, 7 days a week, month after month in venues like the Indra and the Kaiserkeller, where the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the clamor of beer glasses clinking. By the time they exploded onto the world stage in 1964, captivating screaming fans in America with I Wanna Hold Your Hand, they'd logged over 1,200 live performances, a staggering number that dwarfed what most bands accumulate in a lifetime. This wasn't mere luck or innate talent bubbling up. It was deliberate, relentless practice, honing their craft through endless repetitions, experimenting with harmonies, tightening their rhythms until they became a seamless unit. But here's the intriguing twist that pulls us deeper. What if true expertise, the kind that elevates someone from competent to extraordinary, demands not just raw talent, but a staggering, almost obsessive amount of time invested, 10,000 hours to be precise? That's the threshold where proficiency transforms into brilliance, where the brain rewires itself through myelin sheaths thickening around neural pathways, making skills second nature. Think about the violinists at Berlin's elite music academy, studied meticulously by psychologists. The future stars, the ones destined for soloist careers, had practiced around 10,000 hours by the age of 20, while the good but not great hovered at about 8,000 hours, and the future teachers lagged at 4,000. The difference wasn't inborn genius. It was the accumulation of focused effort. Or consider Bill Gates, that awkward teenage kid in Seattle during the late 1960s and early 1970s, tinkering away with computers at his exclusive private school, Lakeside. Thanks to a quirky mother's club that fundraised for a teletype terminal connected to a university mainframe, and his own insatiable curiosity, Gates racked up thousands of programming hours before most kids even knew what a computer was. By high school graduation, he'd surpassed that 10,000-hour mark, debugging code, writing programs, immersing himself in a digital world that was just emerging. It's not that these people were predestined by some cosmic force. They were given rare, pivotal opportunities to accumulate those crucial hours when the vast majority weren't, turning potential into prowess through sheer, sustained immersion. But hold on a moment. Does that mean anyone with enough grit and elbow grease could become a Mozart or a Michael Jordan simply by clocking in the hours? Not quite. The equation is more nuanced, laced with the whims of circumstance and access. Opportunity doesn't knock evenly on every door. It's selective, often biased by factors as arbitrary as the calendar. Consider the frozen rinks of Canada, where hockey is more religion than sport, and young prodigies are scouted from toddlerhood. Scouts and coaches scour youth leagues for the next Wayne Gretzky, but a curious, almost baffling pattern emerges when you crunch the birth dates. Most elite players, from the junior leagues to the NHL, are born in the first few months of the year, January, February, March, babies dominating the rosters like they've got some secret advantage baked into their DNA. Why this lopsided distribution? It traces back to the seemingly innocuous cutoff date for youth hockey leagues, January 1st. A kid born on January 2nd is nearly a full year older than one born on December 31st, meaning at age 6 or 7, when tryouts happen, the early-born child is bigger, stronger, faster, more coordinated, able to skate circles around their younger peers. They get selected for the all-star teams, earn more ice time, receive superior coaching from the best in the business, and the advantages begin to compound like interest in a high-yield savings account, snowballing over the years. By the time they're teenagers, those initial edges have magnified into chasms of skill. Sociologists dub this the Matthew effect, drawn from a biblical verse. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. It's a self-reinforcing loop where small differences at the start lead to massive divergences later. In hockey, a January birthday might add up to hundreds of extra practice hours by age 10, turning a slight maturity advantage into perceived talent. And this isn't unique to slap shots and penalty kills. It ripples through every competitive field, from soccer in Europe, where cutoffs create similar birth biases, to academics, where kids held back a year often outperform their classmates due to that extra maturity boost. This snowballing effect, this amplification of tiny initial advantages, isn't just a quirk of sports. It's a fundamental architect of success across domains, shaping trajectories in ways that feel predestined but are anything but. Take the titans of the tech world, those Silicon Valley legends who built empires from garages and dorm rooms. Bill Gates, born in 1955. His Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen, also 1955. Steve Jobs of Apple fame, 1955. Steve Ballmer, who would later lead Microsoft, 1956. Even the founders of Sun Microsystems, Bill Joy in 1954 and Scott McNealy in 1954. Why this remarkably narrow birth window, clustered around the mid-1950s? The answer lies in the explosive dawn of the personal computer revolution, which ignited in 1975 with the release of the Altair 8800, the first affordable computer kit that hobbyists could assemble at home. If you're born too early, say in the 1940s, you're already entrenched in the corporate world, perhaps programming massive mainframes for IBM, your mindset locked into old paradigms, too established to pivot to this radical new frontier. Born too late in the 1960s, and you're still in high school when the wave crests, missing the chance to ride it from the beginning. But born around 1955? You're 19 or 20 in 1975, brimming with youthful energy, unburdened by family obligations or career inertia, perfectly positioned to seize the moment. Gates drops out of Harvard, convinced his roommate Alan to join him in Albuquerque to write software for the Altair, birthing Microsoft. Jobs, tinkering in his parents' garage with Steve Wozniak, crafts the Apple I, a machine that democratizes computing. Ballmer joins Microsoft early, bringing business acumen. Joy writes the Unix operating system at Berkeley, laying groundwork for the Internet age. It's not merely genius sparking in isolation. It's being in the right place at the perfect historical juncture, when innovation meets readiness. Imagine if Gates had been born in 1945. He might have been a mid-level manager at Hewlett-Packard, watching the PC boom from the sidelines, his potential untapped. Or if Jobs arrived in 1965, he could have been a latecomer coding apps for someone else's platform instead of defining the era. Timing isn't everything, but it's a silent, omnipotent architect of destiny, orchestrating breakthroughs by aligning individuals with seismic shifts in technology, economy, or society. Yet, even with impeccable timing and mountains of practice, raw intelligence alone isn't the golden ticket to outlier status. It's a necessary but insufficient ingredient, often overshadowed by subtler skills. Picture Lewis Terman, a pioneering psychologist at Stanford in the 1920s, embarking on an ambitious quest to identify and nurture America's future elite. He scoured California schools for the brightest young minds, selecting over 1,400 children with IQs soaring above 140, the top 1% geniuses by any measure. Terman dubbed them his termites and tracked them meticulously for decades, convinced they would produce a cavalcade of Nobel laureates, presidents, and world-changing inventors. He provided guidance, monitored their progress, and waited for the fireworks. What unfolded instead was a sobering reality check. Most of these high IQ kids grew into solid, successful adults. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, academics, but nothing extraordinary. No presidents, no revolutionary breakthroughs. In fact, among the termites, there were 0 Nobel Prize winners. Ironically, 2 boys rejected from the study for not quite hitting the genius threshold, William Shockley and Luis Alvarez, went on to claim Nobels in physics, Shockley for the transistor and Alvarez for particle physics discoveries. The lesson? High IQ gets you through the door, opens possibilities, but beyond a certain threshold, around 130, say, it's not the ultimate differentiator. Einstein's IQ is estimated at 150, brilliant but not stratospheric. Now, contrast that with Chris Langan, a modern-day enigma with an IQ off the charts, measured between 195 and 210, higher than Einstein or Hawking. Langan could speak at 18 months, taught himself advanced math by age 5, and as an adult devised a cognitive theoretic model of the universe that blends physics and philosophy. Yet, his life trajectory reads like a tragedy. Bouncing from menial job to menial job, bouncer at a Long Island bar, construction worker, farmhand, never translating his intellect into worldly success. Why the disconnect? The missing piece is practical intelligence, that street-smart savvy for navigating the social world, advocating for yourself, and turning abstract brilliance into tangible achievements. To illustrate, let's juxtapose Langan with J. Robert Oppenheimer, the charismatic physicist who orchestrated the Manhattan Project, birthing the atomic bomb amid the deserts of Los Alamos. As a young graduate student at Cambridge in the 1920s, Oppenheimer, frustrated and unstable, attempted to poison his tutor with a laced apple, an act that could have derailed his career forever. Yet, through sheer force of personality and social acumen, he talked his way out of expulsion, securing probation and psychiatric help instead. Later, despite security concerns over his leftist ties, he charmed generals and politicians to lead the bomb effort. Oppenheimer possessed what psychologist Robert Sternberg calls practical intelligence, the ability to read situations, manipulate outcomes, and exude an entitlement that demands the world bend to your will. Langan, raised in abject poverty on a Montana ranch, abused by a stepfather, lacked this toolkit. When a scheduling conflict arose at Reed College, he dropped out rather than negotiate with administrators. At Montana State, a car breakdown led to missed classes, and instead of seeking accommodations, he quit again, retreating into isolation. Success demands not just cerebral firepower, but the interpersonal know-how to deploy it effectively. And where does this practical intelligence originate? Often, it's nurtured in the cradle of upbringing and social class. Middle-class parents, studies by sociologist Annette LaRoche, engage in concerted cultivation, shuttling kids to soccer practice, encouraging them to question teachers, negotiate with doctors, even complain about a bad seat at a concert. These small interactions build assertiveness, a sense of entitlement to better treatment. Working-class families, conversely, foster natural growth. Kids play freely, but learn deference to authority, which can hinder them in competitive arenas where boldness wins the day. Imagine a bright working-class kid at an Ivy League interview, too polite to push back on a tough question, versus a preppy counterpart who turns it into a dialogue. The outcomes diverge not from IQ, but from these ingrained social scripts. This interplay of hidden advantages surfaces in the most unexpected corners, turning what appears as disadvantage into a launchpad for triumph. Meet Joe Flom, the rotund, tenacious lawyer who became the last-named partner at Skadden, ARP's Slate, Meagher and Flom, a firm that would dominate corporate law, billing billions in the merger mania of the 1980s. Born in 1923 to Jewish immigrant parents in Brooklyn, Flom graduated top of his class at Harvard Law in 1948, only to face the closed doors of New York's elite white shoe firms, which shunned Jews, Italians, and anyone not from WASP stock. Relegated to a tiny four-lawyer outfit, Flom cut his teeth on the dirty work that genteel attorneys avoided: hostile takeovers, proxy fights, litigation over corporate control. It was unglamorous, combative, beneath the polished world of bond issues and trusts. But then the 1970s dawned, an era of deregulation and economic upheaval, where corporate raiders like Carl Icahn and T. Boone Pickens launched aggressive bids to seize companies. Suddenly, expertise in takeover defense and offense was priceless. Flom's firm, honed by years in the trenches, rode the wave, advising on megadeals like the RJR Nabisco buyout, immortalized in Barbarians at the Gate. What seemed like ethnic discrimination had inadvertently prepared him for a boom, turning exclusion into specialization. This pattern echoes through history, particularly in the garment industry of early 20th century New York, where Eastern European Jewish immigrants toiled in sweatshops, stitching shirts and dresses for pennies. It was backbreaking, but it instilled invaluable skills: entrepreneurship, sharp bargaining, autonomy in managing piecework. Louis Bourgeois, arriving from Hungary in 1889 with empty pockets, spotted a niche in children's aprons after wandering Manhattan streets, observing mothers' needs. He and his wife Regina sewed samples overnight, hustled door-to-door to wholesalers, negotiated prices with fabric suppliers, and built a thriving business that employed dozens. Their children, absorbing this hustler's ethos, pursued education voraciously, becoming the doctors, lawyers, and accountants of the next generation. The immigrant grind, far from a curse, was a cultural legacy that equipped them to climb America's ladder, transforming obstacles into stepping stones through resilience and savvy. But legacies, those inherited cultural blueprints, can cut both ways, propelling some forward while ensnaring others in destructive patterns. Venture with me into the rugged hollows of Harlan County, Kentucky, deep in the Appalachian Mountains during the late 19th century. A land of towering peaks, dense forests, and feuds that simmered like moonshine stills. Families like the Howards and Turners, or the infamous Hatfields and McCoys across the border, wiped each other out over slights that seem trivial today. A stray cow wandering into a neighbor's field, a heated argument at a poker game, a perceived insult to family honor. Bloodshed was swift and merciless. Ambushes on dirt roads, shootouts in town squares, vendettas that span generations. Why such explosive violence in these isolated communities? Trace the roots back across the ocean to the Scottish-Irish borderlands, where ancestors herded sheep on harsh, lawless terrains. In such environments, wealth was mobile, livestock that could be rustled overnight, so personal reputation and honor were paramount. Insult a herder, and you risked your flock. Thus, a culture of honor evolved, where men defended slights with force to deter predators. This mindset hitched a ride to America, persisting in the Appalachians long after herding gave way to mining and farming. Modern studies confirm it. Southern men, when insulted in lab experiments, asshole muttered in a hallway, see cortisol and testosterone surge, priming aggression, while Northerners shrug it off with amusement. The South's higher homicide rates tied to honor disputes, bar fights, cheating spouses, stem from this legacy, not poverty alone. Now, imagine transplanting that hierarchical, deferential culture into a high-stakes modern arena like an airplane cockpit. In the 1980s and 1990s, Korean Air suffered a crash rate 17 times higher than United Airlines, with planes plummeting due to avoidable errors. Investigations revealed not deficient pilot skills or faulty equipment, but cultural dynamics. Korea's high power distance index, where subordinates revere authority, led co-pilots to use mitigated speech. Captain, it appears the weather is marginal instead of turn around now, failing to challenge fatal mistakes. One crash in Guam stemmed from the first officer hinting at fatigue rather than insisting on rest. The solution: rigorous training in crew resource management, adopting English for cockpits to flatten hierarchies, encouraging direct communication. Crashes plummeted, transforming Korean Air into one of the safest. Culture isn't an immutable destiny, but it shapes behaviors invisibly, influencing everything from conflict resolution to professional performance, until we confront and adapt it. On the flip side, cultural legacies can forge paths to excellence, as seen in the astonishing math prowess of Asian students, who consistently crush international assessments like the PISA and TIMSS, leaving Western counterparts in the dust. Why do children in China, Japan, Singapore, and Korea excel so profoundly in numbers? It's not some genetic superiority or mystical Eastern wisdom. Delve deeper, and you'll find roots in the muddy rice paddies of southern China, where agriculture demanded an intensity unmatched by Western wheat farming. Rice cultivation is laborious artistry. Building intricate dikes and terraces, precisely controlling water levels, planting seedlings by hand, weeding meticulously, all on plots the size of a living room, yielding 2 or 3 harvests a year if managed flawlessly. A Chinese proverb captures the ethos. No one who can rise before dawn 360 days a year fails to make his family rich. This relentless work ethic, bred over millennia, transfers seamlessly to education. Asian students log far more study hours, embracing effort as the key to mastery rather than innate ability. Carol Dweck's mindset research shows Western kids often view math smarts as fixed. I'm just not a math person, while Asians see it as malleable through persistence. Even linguistic advantages play a role. In Chinese, numbers are concise and logical. 11 is 10-1, 24 2 10's 4, facilitating quicker mental math than English's irregular 11 or 24. Fractions? Rice farmers divided harvests proportionally, honing numerical intuition. On tough TIMSS problems, American students try briefly and quit. Japanese persist for minutes, viewing struggle as growth. This cultural inheritance turns ordinary kids into math outliers, not through magic, but through ingrained habits of diligence. Witness this transformative power in action at the Knowledge is Power program, KIPP, academies, like the one in the South Bronx, a beacon amid urban challenges where poverty and broken systems often doom potential. Founded in the 1990s by teachers Mike Feinberg and Dave Levin, KIPP reimagines education for low-income students of color, demanding commitment from day one. Longer school days from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday classes, mandatory summer sessions, a no-excuses mantra that brooks no shortcuts. Take Marita, a fictional composite of real KIPP students. A 12-year-old from a single-mom household in a cramped apartment, rising at 5:45 a.m. to catch the subway, enduring a rigorous curriculum of math drills, reading analyses, and character lessons, not heading home until evening, then tackling homework till 10 p.m. It's exhausting, sacrificing playtime and TV, but the results are revolutionary. KIPP graduates outperform district averages, with 80 to 90% heading to college, shattering cycles of disadvantage. Why does it work? KIPP provides the structure to accumulate those elusive 10,000 hours, bridging gaps that traditional schools widen. Summer vacations, for instance, exacerbate inequality. Affluent kids attend camps, travel, read books, advancing cognitively, while poor children stagnate or regress, losing months of progress. Sociologist Carl Alexander's Baltimore study tracked students from first grade. By ninth, the achievement gap stemmed almost entirely from summer disparities. Kip erases this by keeping the pedal down year-round, proving that success is malleable, not fixed, when we engineer environments rich in opportunity and expectation. As our expansive journey through the hidden mechanics of success draws to a close, it's worth reflecting on the author's own narrative thread, though Malcolm Gladwell doesn't belabor it. His Jamaican mother, Joyce, born to a schoolteacher in a rural village, descended from a complex lineage of a slave and a plantation owner. In a society stratified by skin tone, her lighter complexion opened doors to education, winning a scholarship to University College London through a confluence of chance and merit, eventually leading to marriage, emigration to Canada, and Gladwell's birth. That single ripple, a aunt's encouragement, a timely exam, altered destinies, underscoring how outliers emerge from serendipitous intersections. Gladwell himself, blending storytelling with sociology, becomes an outlier by illuminating these patterns. So, what profound insights does this tapestry of stories weave for you, the listener who's journeyed this far? Success isn't the meritocracy myth we've been sold, where lone wolves conquer through sheer will. It's an intricate web of circumstances, birth dates, cultural heritages, timely revolutions, social savvy, that we can begin to illuminate, question, and perhaps reshape for greater equity. Next time you envy a tech billionaire's fortune or marvel at a prodigy's feats, pause and probe deeper. What unseen forces, a fortuitous birth year, a nurturing community, a cultural ethic of perseverance, propelled them skyward? And crucially, how can you, in your own life, spot and cultivate those hidden advantages, engineer environments that foster growth and challenge systems that amplify arbitrary edges? Ponder these questions, let them simmer in your mind like a well-tended rice paddy, and you might just uncover the opportunities lurking in your own backyard, rewriting your story from ordinary to outlier. The narrative of extraordinary achievement isn't reserved for the chosen few. It's an invitation to all of us to rethink, adapt, and thrive.